wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to NFL, the Betting Blitz, Week 14. It is a Saturday. We're in the middle of college football. I will be traveling tomorrow, so of course we're leading into Sunday, December the 7th, 2025. A great card on hand. We got a bunch of stuff to detail. We had a great show last week. We've been dominating the card every week. We want to thank you guys last week. We hit over 6,000 views on X. Mike and I started this only about 6-8 weeks ago. We didn't think it would pop that quick. Maybe we did, Mike. We pop bottles. We love the people. We love to talk. Let's talk some ball. Mike, what's going on, brother?
Time to get it rolling, baby. Time to let it rip. You got to show flexibility and versatility when it comes to the NFL season. So we appreciate you guys joining us here on Saturday. Suddenly not so casual Saturday, Shark, my dude. I'm excited to be back. We had a solid week last week and wouldn't expect anything else. So let's roll our sleeves up and get to work, my guy.
Absolutely. And we see you guys. I know everybody's got their college football games on. Huge card. Big games today. Some of the biggest games you will see in college football all year. I'll say that. Indiana, Ohio State later. But we're not talking college football. We are talking pro football. We got a big slate. We got a bunch of stuff. We got playoff angles. We have urgency, which I love that word when it comes to football. You see a lot of teams early season just kind of mailing in their tickets. This is where teams care. We have a lot of data, a lot of divisional games. Let's get into the card. Sundays are for the Sharps. First game on the card, Seahawks at Falcons in Atlanta. We're looking at the Dolphins-Jets there. We're hanging out here. Here we are. Seattle at Falcons. Birds at Birds. Not Bird Gang. This is actually a really upstart Seahawks team on the road and really a depleted version of the Falcons. The Falcons had big aspirations this year. They made the change to Michael Penix. He looked good late last year. He looked good to start this season. He's hurt. It's Kirk Cousins. It's quarterback carousel. Darnold, Cousins coming in and out of the Vikings, now facing off. Mike, I think this is probably leaning towards the road team. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we probably should have looked at the order before we flipped the card here today. I had a couple different looks on this thing, so we'll be nimble, we'll be versatile, we'll be flexible, as I talked about there. But we do have considerable action coming in on the Seattle Seahawks team, and despite that, this line has come down a full point. 78% of the bets, 77% of the cash saw the Seahawks put boot to ass last week, and yet the line has come down a full point. As far as the total, it's come up a full point with 72% of the bets and 71% of the cash on the over in this spot. You know, and I just looked at this one, and we talked a little bit backstage about this before the show. I found it, somewhat challenging, I guess I'll say, when it comes down to it. You know, I don't want to get involved in the Atlanta Falcons business. Do I want to get involved in a hyped-up Seattle Seahawks team? This is their third time on the road in the last 4 weeks. And they've had a lot of these Southwestern travel spots. So it's definitely a road smitten team here. Darnold coming off a window does find a way. Once he finds that speed pocket, once he slides into that groove, he's 16-3-1. He's won 9 of his last 10. Mike McDonald on the road as a coaching advantage at 12-2. And then I started breaking it down. And one of the stats that I love, we talked about this backstage, I talked about it on my show earlier this week, is the DVOA. It's kind of a hybrid stat that takes like all of the metrics that they look at for measuring a defensive effectiveness, and they blend them together and they come up with a single score. It's probably the most comprehensive analytic when it comes to ranking these teams overall. And guess who leads the overall off defense in DVOA across the league in the run? That's the Seahawks. So, you know, you got a team that ranks 12th in completion and throwing the deep ball. They're able to use Sam Darnold's arm to get them going. They can go out there and stop the run. And what's the Falcons' strength? Robinson, the run game. And I think that gets shut down here. So as much as I don't want to fade this line movement, I'm going to have to get into this Seahawks spot. I'll lay the -6.5 with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I completely agree. First official play for me on this show. It is in alignment with Mike. We're taking -6.5. And truthfully, this is getting steamed down in the market. I was actually pleased to see that. I don't know who these syndicates are. I want to give them a call and thank them for giving us better line value here. This was sitting at 7 midweek, and even some 7.5s at open, I believe. I do have written down here the open was 7.5. So syndicates, thank you. Take the wrong side. Make it easy for us. But
you got the -6 is official. Lock her in with the -6, boys and girls. Let's kick the card off.
Fantastic number. Fantastic number. And, you know, when you look at it, Mike, you said it, this Seattle team has been absolutely elite on the road. It's high-level football because traveling on the road, particularly going cross-country for a West Coast team, is not the easiest position. Most teams play horribly in this spot. This is where the Seattle has excelled. I said this last week. I really liked Sam Darnold. obviously kind of flattered around a little bit, was one of the youngest, if not the youngest starting quarterbacks in league history. His rookie year coming out of USC with the Jets. He's mature now. He's been around. And, truthfully, one of the things I love about life, the idea that you have to go down to come up. The struggle makes you stronger. And I think that's what you're seeing with Darnold. This guy's an absolute competitor. He's very cerebral. He delivers the football very well. And this is really a terrible spot for Atlanta. This is Kirk Cousins. This is his second home game outside of the division. His only other one was against Miami. He was actually favored by a touchdown in that game and got absolutely annihilated by 3 touchdowns, or more, I should say, 34-10. If that's your performance against the Dolphins, what are you going to do against the Seahawks in this spot? And the Seahawks really need this game. I opened the show by saying the word of the day is urgency. Seattle is sitting here 9-3, tied for the division with the Rams, having lost the tiebreaker. They're the 5th seed in a jam-packed wildcard race in the NFC. Utterly jammed. Green Bay, San Francisco, and Detroit are 3 high-class football teams right on the heels of the Seahawks. This is not a trap game. They will not take their foot off the gas. And final point on this is actually a terrible schedule spot for the Falcons. The Falcons are coming off of consecutive road games at New Orleans. Last week, a tight, grueling loss outdoors in New Jersey at the Jets. Now, one home game before a short week divisional game at Tampa Bay and another road game. So this is a sandwich home game in a horrible travel spot, look ahead short week. And I think the next week's game on Thursday night actually is a huge look ahead for Kirk Cousins personally. If you guys remember, last year, Kirk was the starter most of the season. He played 2 classics against Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield, one on Thursday Night Football, home at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, 36-30 in overtime. Kirk is going to be looking ahead to that. He's got Baker on deck. This is out of division. This is a complete anecdotal game for the Falcons. This has blowout written all over it. Take the Seahawks at -6.5. And let's cash. A lot of big games, Mike. I can feel the energy building. Even though we're recording on Saturday, I feel like we're already locked and loaded going up to kickoff on Sunday. I have the ESPN list here. I guess maybe not of such a big game. Should I go down the ESPN list or your list here? What do you think?
It's up to you. Your call. I'll be nimble. I'll be versatile. Whatever you want.
I'm gonna go down the ESPN list. This is an absolutely elite game. We got 2 huge games at 1 o'clock. Can't say the Seahawks is a huge game. Obviously a great take, but 1 o'clock in Orchard Park. Mike's in the area. He's telling me it's about 15 degrees. Bengals at Bills. This is a long time coming. These teams have not played in 2 seasons, but these are 2 of the most marquee quarterbacks in the league. They're absolutely top rivals. And Cincinnati has actually owned Buffalo, 2-0 in the Burrow window. It's a very interesting game. Burrow came back last week on Thanksgiving. He looked great, of course. Mike, I think we're looking towards the road team in this game.
Yeah, much as it pains me to say it, I'm with you here. This is a couple of factors that you have to look at. I think from a Bills kind of falling off perspective, I don't want to overreact, but at the same time, look, Joe Burrow, man, look what he did. Comes back out there, and as much as he's got this plate in his shoe and this injury concern out there, it's not reflected in the line. 68% of the bets, 72% of the cash believe Joe Burrow can go out there and cover the spread. And the lines come down. So there's still 6s. That's the benefit of doing this show on a Saturday, but we're seeing 5.5s. We've got a line that's moved up 2 full points from 51.5 to 53.5. Shark, I know we both think that this has got a potential for a shootout. And that's what the Bills do against some of these stronger AFC opponents. And you see it year in and year out. Now, add a comprehensive variable to this. They just got shafted on the free agency window. Or not free agency, but the player acquisition window. And they were going for Darius Slay. They let a player go. He got picked up off of waivers, and Darius Slay decides, I don't want to come to Buffalo. I'm trying to retire. I got an 18-year-old kid that's senior in high school, and I want to start to spend some time with my family. I think he wanted to go to Buffalo, I think he wanted to go to Philly, and the Bills got the drop on him. So that being said, though, kind of back to the game and the tangibles in this thing here, Bengals aren't statistically eliminated from the playoffs yet. And maybe that's because of the division. Well, it is because of the division that they're playing in. Look, Joey Burrow. When Joey Burrow comes out there in the dog roll, and the Bengals are three or more points, they find a way to cover. If they covered the last game, they're 18-4. If he covers, you put him in the dog roll of 3 or more points, he's 18-4. After the Bengals come out as a 3+ point win as a dog, they're 10-1-1. So collectively, the headwinds show us that the Bengals get strong and they just continue to grow. And so I think all of that motivation, all of that meaning, all of that put together, what's Buffalo going to do? Josh Allen last week threw 123 yards. I don't know what's going on with the offensive coordinator situation. Maybe that's a bubble that's going to burst soon enough. But yeah, there's motivation with the Patriots having gone out there and dominated, and they're pushing the AFC East. But you got James Cook. He can keep the ball on the ground. And I always believe when you have a team that runs the ball, if the other quarterback can neutralize your 8-minute drive by throwing a quick dart down the field, you're in trouble. And that's Joe Burrow. Now, on top of that, look, 5th place in DVOA on the ground. So that should help neutralize that James Cook component out there. I like the +6 for the Cincinnati Bengals, Shark. I think this is a good spot for us, even to consider the teaser with the over.
I couldn't agree more. I really could. I couldn't agree more. And I think just zooming way out in terms of this Burrow team and obviously the coaching staff and this regime, this team has been utterly terrible pretty much the entire duration of Joe Burrow's career, the first 10 weeks of the season. It feels like we're having this same conversation every single season. Here come the Bengals. They have momentum. It's December. Can they get to the playoffs somehow? You saw the exact same thing last year. They were 4-8 straight up. They finished 5-0 straight up, 5-0 ATS. They didn't make the playoffs. Too little, too late. But nonetheless, it's just who they are. It's psychology. The word that comes to mind for me is procrastination. Some people don't find their level until it's the last day before the project needs to get done. That's who the Bengals are. I'm right there with you, Mike. When I was in high school, I'll start midnight the night before.
Yeah.
That being said, that's who the Bengals are. So you have them right where you want them. It's December 7th. It's week 14. They're on the road. They can't lose. They feel urgency. And Burrow is actually 12-1 straight up in ATS weeks 14 through 18 in his career. I mean, the guy's almost undefeated in the month of December. It's unbelievable. And I was just talking about this with the Falcons spot. Road, home, back on the road, big divisional game. Same spot for Buffalo. Road Houston, loss last week. I told you guys on the show. Take the Bills to hammer the Steelers. Coming off that win, 425, cold, evening, Pittsburgh. Got to come home, play Cincinnati before a huge divisional game at New England next week. When we were looking at this back in August, we would have never said that the actual trap game here would be Cincinnati. We would have said that's a big game against Joe Burrow. I would make an argument the bigger game for Buffalo is next week, a revenge game against the Patriots, who are now the 1 seed in the AFC and beat Buffalo in Buffalo 23-20. It's a trap spot. It's a terrible spot. Just speaking on the total real quick, Mike, you're seeing a direct polarization here in terms of the totals for the Bills, road versus home. Bills road games this year are 5-1 to the under. And the average final score is totaling only 40.8 points per game. Come home to Orchard Park, 4-2 versus the over, averaging 58.5 points per game. Wow. Unbelievable split there. We talk about this with the Packers every week. Same thing. It's uncanny. And these teams haven't faced off since 2 games going back a little earlier in the career of both these quarterbacks. Both were really low totals. 27-10 in the playoffs, January 2023. That was the 2022 regular season. Bengals hammered Buffalo in Buffalo there. That was the year Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl and lost the Rams. And regular season the following year, November 5th, 2023, 24-18, also an under. So over line, you're going to see a ton of points. The last time the Bills laid 6 points outside of the division, it was to Baker Mayfield. The final score was 44-32 over. Burrow's better than Baker. You want to buy the Bengals? Any over. 2 plays, 1 game. Let's dominates. First divisional game on the card. We're going to East Rutherford, MetLife Stadium, Dolphins at Jets. Interesting game here. Really trying to find motivation in this game. Who's going to care? Who's not? I think you can make an argument both teams care. I think Tua needs to win. I think he needs to prove something. McDaniel absolutely needs to win. And the Jets need to win. Glenn needs to set the table for next year. He needs to get the mentality up. Mike, we were just talking about this before the show, but one of two things. One of two bridges is going to break this week. Tua Tagovailoa is 6-0 against the Jets as a starter, undefeated. He's 0-7 if the kickoff temperature is under 46 degrees. It's going to be cold, windy. Tua from Hawaii, Alabama, Miami, traveling? I don't know. Mike, what do you think?
Tricky spot. We talked about these narratives. You and I kind of found a way to a similar point without necessarily using the same evaluation metric out there. And you're talking about Tua on the road and fading Miami late in the year kind of speaks to that road situation. They've got 3 teams up in the Northeast. It is cold up here right now in the mid-20s. You got New England, you got New York Jets, and you got the Buffalo Bills. And I kind of think that's why it speaks to that 12-4 record. To me, the thing about this game is we don't have what is expected to be a ton of wind, right? So these guys can throw the ball in the cold. It's just cold. And they're going to have the space heaters on the sideline. And who knows, Miami might bring their own benches up. Definitely a counterpoint to a Miami team that's, used to beating up teams when they have to come down to Miami. If they're sitting up here in the cold, it gets hot and it changes things on their side of the ball here. 61% of the bets, 47% of the cash, like this Miami Dolphins side of things. 2.5s. We're starting to see some 3s in the marketplace, but they're not true 3s. We're still seeing kind of even money on the 3, and it's predominantly sitting at that -2.5. 41s have moved to 41.5. 70% of the bets, 69% of the cash are on this over. Boy, we're just kind of seeing a split. There's not a ton of movement on one side or the other of this game, Shark. It's definitely a situation where it's a little coin flippy. We've seen that the New York Jets, offensive challenge, Garrett Wilson obviously being out of the game, but they're able to run the ball, and they're pretty, you don't say they're biased to the run, but I think what it comes down to is you can see this New York Jets team run against this tougher Miami Dolphins defense. I'm flippy on this game here. I would lean to the Dolphins. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the under in this game. Cold game. Tua struggling to get out of the hopper here. 41.5 seems like a reasonably low price number. Give me the under 41.5.
Yeah, I agree. I think the best look in this game is the under. When you look at the game that was played back week 4 Monday Night Football in Miami, of course, that was the Justin Fields version of the Jets. And, crazily enough, Justin Fields now with his third team, he just facilitates overs. He's very athletic. He's fast. He scrambles. But I think more importantly, he turns the ball over so much. It creates a lot of chaos, which leads to points. Justin Fields, in my opinion, is like an auto-over quarterback. You can't say the same thing about Tyrod Taylor. This is going to be definitely one of those games where I think Miami could cover, but like real low, like 13-10, 17-13, something like that. And I think Miami has slightly more urgency in this game, but I think the urgency is potentially contaminated. So for Miami to make the playoffs, they basically need to win out, okay? They need to get to 10-7. So fine. So they beat the Jets. Like, this is one of those things where it's like, you don't want to tell your kid it's Santa. Santa's not real. You're waiting and you're waiting. I'm telling you, this is the Dolphins right now. If I told the Dolphins, you guys just don't have a chance, you don't want to burst their bubble just yet, because after beating the Jets to win out, they'd have to beat Pittsburgh on the road next week, Monday Night Football. Then they'd have to beat Cincinnati at home, who we just detailed is an incredible late season team. Then they'd have to beat Tampa Bay at home. And then they'd have to go to New England in week 18 and beat the Patriots. Point being, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. You go into the locker room, you say, guys, you're going to beat the Jets. Why bother? You have no chance. Just pack it in. Go on vacation right now. Point being, I think this is pro football. Obviously, they're going to try. I don't think that they're going to be getting to the playoffs. That all being said, the under is the best look in this game, and let's keep it moving. Next game on the card, more divisional football. This is a big dog game. This is a real high-level game. Pittsburgh at Baltimore. Truthfully, when I was looking at this, I thought to myself, why is this not a 4:00 game? This just, for me, screams 4:00 game. M&T Bank Stadium, Lamar, Harbaugh, Tomlin, Rodgers, all these guys. Let the fans ramp up. Well, fans in Baltimore, you're gonna have to ramp up at 7 a.m. tomorrow. It's gonna be a big dog game. Mike, what do you think?
Well, we got 58% of the bets and 48% of the cash on the Steelers. Kind of a split, a little bit more of the public money leaning on the Pittsburgh Steelers side of things here at the +6. Are they overreacting to some of the recency bias out there? Potentially. Both these teams are sitting at 500. I said to you backstage, Lamar Jackson finally makes the injury report for the first time in 5 weeks, even though he's been banged up every one of those 5 weeks. So I don't know if that's a head fake or not. There's a lot of fodder on this game. There's a lot of fog that we have to kind of clear out of the way as we start to look at this thing. And, I was looking at the bottom line with these two teams, and I thought, well, first and foremost, Mike Tomlin and his 500, and he's doing it. He's doing his 500. It's a disservice to his team because you fall in the middle of the pack, and every time you fall in the middle of the pack, you're getting average draft picks out there. The Ravens on the other side of things, despite their, AFC championship winning bias out there and everyone talking about him early in the season, still don't think that Lamar Jackson's got his groove back here. They just gave Mark Andrews a big contract extension. I don't know if that slights Isaiah Likely a little bit there from a tight end perspective, but we know what Mark Andrews can do out there. And of course, Derrick Henry, King Henry, trying to get himself back after several weeks of fumbles in a row. I think he has a big ground game out there because I think this is a ground and pound type of game. Steelers and Ravens always feels like an under. I think you can't go wrong in that situation. But I'll tell you this, maybe I'm stubborn. Maybe, and I was laughing backstage. I said, I was waiting to get my balls broken on this game here because I'm going to go to the Steelers. I think that there's two things going on. First of all, you put them on the road. It's an early afternoon game, not that 4:00 slot that you're talking about, which is an interesting point you bring up. They're 17-3 if they're between a -2-point favorite and 11-point dog. That very much falls into this window with a +6. They do well as a dog against Baltimore. They're 12-5-2 in those positions as well. So to me, this came down to a situation where I said, okay, let me try to make sense of all of this. And where I came up to was this: Mike Tomlin, Aaron Rodgers, old dogs. Can you teach them new tricks? It don't matter. The sky's falling. They may both be facing retirement after the season. They want one last good push. And I think they can bring their A game here against this Ravens team. So I'm going to take the +6. I don't even know if the wrong team's favored or not, but I'm going to go with the +6. And I think we have a tightly competitive game, much like we talked about in that last one.
Yeah, no, I actually, crazily enough, I do lean towards the Steelers in this game. I think it's going to be a 6-point game. And I think if you can get +6.5, I always use this word. It's not really a disrespectful word to the gambling industry. Free roll. You get a ticket from the casino. You don't pay for it. It's a free roll. I think +6.5 is a free roll on. I think the game's going to be inside at 6 points. And truthfully, I think there's a lot more motivation here than just what you were saying. I think you really go back to last year, 2 consecutive games played in this stadium late season last year. Baltimore hammered the Steelers twice. It was the Russell Wilson version of the Steelers, but margin, 34-17 in the regular season. In the playoffs, wild card, January 11th, 28-14. So dominant. And the line should tell you a story there. Baltimore was favored by a touchdown, -7. In the playoffs, -8.5. So you ask yourself, what do the books think of this? The books thought margin and then further margin. Now they're moving it tighter at 6.5 at open. I think this is going to be a tight game. And just one final point on this, Mike, obviously giving all the details. You're looking at Baltimore, who's been a bye team, obviously. Started 1-5, now 5-1 straight up last 6 to get to even 500 here. They haven't been covering spreads. They've been quite unimpressive, actually. They didn't look very good on the road at Cleveland. They didn't really look particularly impressive offensively against the Jets. They're only 3-3 ATS in this window. And this is really what we try to talk about every week. The very specific difference between winning a game, which is their motivation as pros, versus covering a spread. And I think that Baltimore will win this game, not cover. I haven't gotten there officially yet. Truthfully, it pains me to actually put money on the Steelers. So I've held back until this point. But I think Pittsburgh is the side here. What's the current line here, Mike? +6.5 we're looking at?
I thought
6. It's down to 6.
Yeah.
Wow. Catching a lot of steam. 5.5 on FanDuel. And, FanDuel historically for me has been the sharpest book in terms of their line moves. That's sharp movement. And, truthfully, I just said I thought they'd lose by 6. So maybe we're a push line now, crazily enough. But
it's funny you say that. I always say whenever I get the best number of FanDuel, I know I'm taking an L.
Yeah, I mean, wait, you do or you don't like FanDuel?
No, I think in terms of the numbers, if they're giving you the best number, you talk about it being a sharp book, they're baiting you in there. If they're giving you the best number historically, it seems like I'm taking that loss.
Yeah, correct. I'm just looking at the domestic books here right now. Fanatics, BetMGM, DraftKings, and others. They're the only current book that has -5.5 Ravens. Only one. Everything else is -6. So let that be known. And also just a point for you guys when you're looking at lines, certain books definitely have more sharp tells. FanDuel is that book. Could be a push line now. As I said, I don't love the game. Mike likes the Steelers and keeping it moving. We got more divisional football. Tons of divisional football here, week 14. Saints at Bucks in Tampa Bay. This should be a very interesting game. Matchup 2. You saw these teams play a few weeks ago. Bucks on the road in the Superdome, 23-3. Noteworthy, not just the win, the last game for Spencer Rattler. That was the nail in the coffin. Enter Tyler Shough. Mike thanks the Bucks for that game. He is now a financially richer man because Tyler Shough is the quarterback for the Saints. Mike, does it continue this week?
Tyler Shough has put us in the dough, and I want to thank everybody for checking in with us here today. I see some great comments, some new commenters in the chat as well. Some guys say, Shark, it's you. You're here. Yes, he is. He's rocking. We've been doing this for several weeks, so appreciate you guys hitting that thumbs up button as we roll through here. And if you're on X, check us out over on the YouTube page here at Sports Money Network. But look, Tyler Shough, we've definitely been making some cash with this guy. There's no question about it. Saints coming out here against the Bucks, and this is where I started off the show talking a little bit about some of these metrics that I use to kind of evaluate football. And I don't know how that necessarily relates to this game here. I just have a feeling the Buccaneers have faced a heck of a schedule, and you got to respect the step up or step down in class. And at a 2-10 team with the Saints, yeah, you're going into hostile territory with a rookie quarterback trying to go out there and gun. Look at who they had. This isn't easy. So they had the Saints. It was a 23-3, just absolute bludgeoning, right? 28-23, they lose to the Patriots. Well, that's the number one team now in the AFC. Then they lose 44-32 at Buffalo, which was a very difficult spot where we knew they were going to go on the road to the Rams, and they puked it up against the Rams. They did take down the Cardinals at home. I think they've settled back, and look at the schedule they've got coming up. 3 straight divisional games. I think they know they got to take this one because you got the Falcons on deck. Okay, we'll see what happens. And then you go to the Panthers. I think the Saints got to go figure it out. And then on top of that, home favorites. ATS losing streak, but they have a winning record, right? So in essence, you're buying low on a team that's got a winning record. They're 24-4. I mean, that couldn't be as pure as it gets when it comes to overall statistics. You're buying low. You're 24-4. You've won 10 straight times in those situations on top of that. Can they cover the number? NFL late season divisional dogs that are shitty have a low win rate. They are in a little run. It's 9-1 to the under, however, which suggests a lower scoring game. I think you put the two of these together. I think it's a Buck spot. Question is, how do I want to get to paid on the Bucks? I guess I got to take a look here and see. Right now, -8.5, 73% of the bets, 81% of the cash are on the Bucks. That line hasn't moved. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the over 25.5 on the Buccaneers team total. Over 25.5 Bucks team total. Official.
Yeah, it's funny. Mike, you've been trying to talk me out of this guy all week or all month and all season, it seems like. I'm finally on the bandwagon. I'm going to give you guys Saints plus 8.5. And Mike, I think it goes back to what we just said about the Steelers game. The Bucks need to win. They don't need to win by 9 points. And I think you're going to see a scrappy effort here from the Saints. And truly, it's actually a very specific calendar spot. This is the second time in this small window that Tyler Shough has had a road game out of division, followed by a road game in the division. Go back to the previous one, did not cover at the Rams, stayed on the road, beat Carolina outright 17-7. There's your under. Same line range, roughly, +6. For Carolina, it's the same general weighting. Bucks are heavier graded. And now you're coming off a game at Miami. They did backdoor cover. They weren't really competitive. They didn't really score until late in the fourth quarter. Miami kind of gave it away. They tried to go for it on 4th down, didn't get it, and then just gave up a touchdown. Point being, they didn't the Saints didn't cover at the Rams. They did cover last week at Miami, but they weren't really particularly good. Like, they could have easily not covered if a few plays had gone the other direction. So we're going to call that like a weaker effort. This is where I think they bounce back, similar to the spot at Carolina. And going back to what we said about the Falcons, the Bucks are the other side of this look-ahead short week to the Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins home game, Thursday Night Football, Week 15. You've already beaten this team 23-3. I talk about this in all sports. Of course, you only get this in divisional football. You don't get out of division twice. So it's very specific in pro football. But like in certain environments, like you say to these teams like the Bucks, they say, we already beat this team by 20. We're good with the Saints. We're good. We don't need to show up here and blow them out. Like, cool. We'll beat them by 3, no problem. I think it's a trap spot. They kind of grinded it out with Arizona last week. They're not really performing particularly well at home. They're not scoring well at home in recent history. And I think it's a look at it. I think it's a trap. I think it's going to be a tight game. And I also do agree with the under. Top look for me is going to be plus 8.5. And I do agree with the under. Next game on the card, more divisional football. Going to North Florida. Jags hosting the Colts. Should be a big game here. Both teams 8-4. Both teams at the top of the division, really tight AFC South. Houston only one game behind at 7-5. This is going to be a really tough game, in my opinion. I think the line tells you the story. Basically, a pick 'em line, high total. I could see this being really a back and forth affair and really kind of a pick 'em at the money line. Mike, any thoughts?
So we talked about this one, and I said, I kind of thought at first pass, this has got to be an under, right? Like these two teams, they're kind of struggling to some degree in recent form. Then I said, you know what, though? These AFC South teams, man, they're just kind of too stupid to know that these games should be under divisional games. And they end up getting themselves in shootouts. And then you pointed out the numbers with these two teams last year in Shootout City. Now we look at the total, 50% of the bets, 54% of the cash are on the Colts. It's been a frozen line. It's pretty tight. And then you look down, and when we see these kind of between the ones and twos where it's a really low spot, we tend to see more action or more volatility on the money line. It's coming down a little bit on the Colts side of things. You have 67% of the bets, 67% of the cash on the money line for the Colts. It's made it 6 cents more attractive, but it has not moved. So it's kind of an oscillating line. Like when your golf ball kind of sits in a divot and it kind of spins a little bit, but it doesn't quite move. That's an oscillating line. 47.5 has moved to 46.5 on the total. There's where you have a little bit of a disparity. You've got 63% of the bets on the over, but 46% of the cash on the under. Tend to look at the percentage of money as maybe some of the sharper bettors or some of the more heavier bettors that are going to come in there. Bigger bettors don't necessarily mean you're a sharper bettor, but that's more prevalent to the Super Bowl itself, I think. And that being said, boy, we got a tricky spot. The public, I think, looks at this game and says, boy, the Jags are at home. Guess what? The Jags have beaten the Colts 10 straight times at home. Oh, by the way, I heard something about Indiana Jones. I was going to call him Danny Dimes. Indiana Jones playing on a broken leg. Well, I think there's going to be a little bit of an overreaction. We've seen it. They're 1-4 in their last 5 games. Boy, Sauce Gardner, what a bum and break that is there. This guy comes in, and he's out, and who knows what's going to happen. It looks like he's probably done. That being said, though, when I talk to you guys about the DVOA, I mentioned it at the start of the show. I'll bring it up again for this particular game. We see, and Shark and I talked about this backstage, first half of the season, Jaguars were running the ball. They were cooking. They were grooving. They kind of fell off here in the second half. And not only that, but they're 14th in DVOA against the rush, right? So that's middle of the pack against a rushing team. Maybe you heard Jonathan Taylor's a running beast out there. And on top of that, they're 21st through the air. Maybe you heard Indiana Jones been firing the ball all over the yard, playing that prison ball. And look, I think this is a bad spot for the Jaguars in this spot. I'm going to take the Colts. I'll take the Colts on that money line. I'll take them at -124. I've been burned plenty of times here. I've earned the right to fade the Jaguars. What do you think about that, Shark?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've had a good pulse on the Jags. You did have them against the Chargers when the Chargers just got absolutely blown out in the stadium going back a few weeks. I honestly, I hadn't seen that point about the Colts losing 10 straight games in the stadium. I love buying low in those spots, particularly where the team is favored, who's been losing so sustainably in the environment. I think it's a strong line. I do have Indianapolis to win by 3 points. As I said, I think it's going to be a tight game. The best look in this game for me is definitely the over, however. We'll give it to you guys officially at 46.5. It's going to be an explosive game. You saw an under with the Chargers environment. That was not because of Jacksonville's inability to score. They scored 35. You're seeing Jacksonville almost every week kind of just explode offensively. Off an under last week, they scored. They had 25. They just held the Indianapolis Titans to 3 points. Nice buy low there. And you really look at the Colts, it's the same scenario here. They're off a divisional under last week at home against the Texans. They only scored 16 points. So buy low in terms of the entire environment for both teams coming off of last week. And you go through the Indianapolis scenario here in terms of these recent games. They're just all over the place, like in terms of yardage in the game versus the final result. The moral of the story is they're actually 3-1 to the under last 3, like in absolutely egregious fashion. 6 turnovers at Pittsburgh to only score 20 points. Like, just to give emphasis to this, 6 turnovers is like historically awful in pro football. This is not like small conference college football here. This is pro football. 6 turnovers. They would have scored 32 points there easily if they only had like 3 turnovers. The insanity of that. And then the game against the Chiefs somehow went under in overtime, 23-20. The Chiefs had almost 500 yards of offense in that game. The point is, the Indianapolis defense doesn't travel well. They're a sieve. The offense is explosive, both throwing and passing. And we've seen a ton of unders prior. It's a great over. Take the over at 46.5. And let's cash. Keeping it moving. Titans, Browns. Last game of the 1 o'clock slate. Actually, we got two more. These are going outside of the division. This is, without question, probably the worst out-of-division game all week. Obviously, Dolphins-Jets probably takes the trophy for worst game on the entire slate. This is the worst out-of-division game. Shedeur Sanders, home game 2, lost last week to the Niners, beat the Raiders on the road in his first career start. Mike and I were just saying before the show, what do you correlate this game to? The Niners or the Raiders? I think the Raiders. And I think that's why he's favored looking towards Cleveland in this game. Mike, any thoughts?
This is a horrible game. I mean, look at these two guys. The Titans, the Browns. How do you make some money out of this thing? These two teams are 4-20 combined. I'll tell you, I had a really tough time. Here's where I came up with. I came up with I'll give you guys the trends or the stats really quick here, the numbers, the splits. You can hear the enthusiasm in my voice. 69% of the bets, 74% of the cash are on the Browns. The line has barely starting to move now. I guess we're starting to see some 4.5s. Should Shedeur Sanders be a favorite? Should he be laying 4 points? The Titans continue to find different ways to reinvent losing. 33.5s have moved to 34s with 78% of the bets and 75% of the cash on this one. I'll tell you what, breakdown aside, I'll save everybody the time. I got a 2-leg player prop. I went to Judkins for an anytime touchdown. He's been pretty consistent when it comes to this Cleveland offense, if there is a consistent term out there. And then I went to Harold Fannin, 4+ receptions. Here's the deal. He's leading the team in routes, receptions, targets, receiving yards, first downs, touchdowns, broken tackles, passer rating, targets. This guy is the guy at 3.5 or 4+, however you can play that out there. With a Judkins touchdown, that's a +212 spot to get paid. So there's a little player prop action for you guys in a game that I think that'll make it a little bit of fun. There'll be something to root for in a game that I could really care less about.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to give you guys the Browns at -3.5. I think the Browns win this game by 7 to 10 points. And I think there's more to it than just, kind of arbitrarily throwing a unit on the board here. I think when you look at Cleveland this year, they've actually been a very effective home team. They beat Green Bay straight up. They crushed Miami, the only time they were a home favorite this year. I think people were a little skeptical back in week 7 of Cleveland home favorite Dylan Gabriel. No problem. 31-6. Again, the defense, they covered against Baltimore. And then last week was their first non-cover. Point being, they've been great at home against the spread, and it's because of the defense. Defense is great, and the defense only gets stronger in December with this weather. And you got to remember, Cam Ward played for the University of Miami last year. He plays his home games in Tennessee. This is going to be really hostile in terms of the crowd and the weather. And in terms of the actual trends here for Tennessee, Tennessee's coming off a home blowout loss in the division. Coming off of a home blowout loss going on the road this year, they're 0-2 ATS. They got hammered against the Colts at home, went on the road, 26-0 loss, shutout. Like, there's a legitimate chance that the Titans could get shut out in this game. Of course, as I said that, they'll probably take the opening kick to the house. But it is what it is. Final point on this. Last week, we tried to back the Browns, and we lost. +5.5, lost 26-8 to the Niners. Mike and I were talking about this on Sunday afternoon. I want to put this on record because it was just so egregious. The Niners scored 3 touchdowns in the game. One of them was because in early going, they had a 66-yard punt return. In a 10-8 game, tight game in the third quarter, Kevin Stefanski called for a fake punt in his own territory. That might have been one of the worst calls I've seen all year. 10-8. What are you doing? The Niners are not scoring. It's not a high volatile game. Kick the ball. Fake punt. They fumble. Sure enough, Niners recover and score a touchdown like immediately. And then later on, Cleveland muffed a punt on their own 18-yard line to give the Niners another short field and a touchdown. So the Niners did nothing offensively. And Cleveland's special teams was historically awful. I think they're going to clean that up this week. I think the line speaks to it. Shedeur is favored for a reason. Take the Browns, and let's cash. Final game at 1 o'clock. Going north, Minnesota, freezing cold. Washington at Vikings. Freezing cold outside, hot inside. Fortunately, this stadium is not outdoors. I was actually saying this to somebody midweek. When the Green Bay Packers at some point get a new stadium, whenever it may be, they're going to get an indoor stadium, period. Because it's actually wild to sit outside in under zero temperatures. This is going to be an interesting game. I have the hat on, Mike. I think something's developing here. What do you think?
Suddenly not so casual breakdown. Look, I want to go right back really quick when you mentioned that comment about the Bears or the Browns game. Hey, if you think the Titans aren't going to score, under 7.5 on their team total is plus 350. So worth noting. And books won't let you go any lower than that. So they might be on to something about this team getting busted up and blanked. So I might take a little sprinkle and go back in there and have some fun with that game. But, I was pleasantly surprised to hear as we talked about some of these that feels like we're maybe on the same page. And then I saw the buy hack come out and I said, holy cow, we got ourselves something going on here. 75% of the bet, 76% of the cash on this Commanders team. 61% of the bet, 69% of the cash on the over in this game. It has come up 1.5 points, and that kind of surprised me because when you look at what happened with this Minnesota Vikings team last week, it was just, I don't know. I mean, you got shut out. What do you say? It's ugly. It's as ugly as it gets. In fact, they've scored 6 points in their last 2 games. That was because they put up a 6-pack against Green Bay. So does JJ McCarthy come in here and do, I mean, this team's been rolling the unders because they're not scoring. And I thought about this one and I looked at it and I said, I think this game's got an over written on it here. We see a lot of divisional games, second time through in some cases on the season. We know those kind of have that recipe for unders. Teams are built to play against their own division. Sunday, NFC teams, non-divisional spots. The over is 17-4-1. Thought that was a pretty impressive number. Vikings 17th in DVOA against the pass and above the run as well. So, I mean, this is a marginal team bottom half of the league when it comes to defense. The Vikings, JJ McCarthy, I mean, the guy's brutal. He's looking terrible. Aaron Jones has been banged up this offense. So I can't get to the over on this team. But what I can get to, and I think it's in somewhat of a cosmic alignment with my guy Shark here, is I'm looking at that team total with the Commanders. I think they can get over 22.5. I think they can probably put up 24, 25 points. And I don't know if I can see the Vikings do the same to reciprocate and push this game over the total, but I'll take the Commanders team total over 22.5.
Yeah, I totally agree. I got it on backwards. We'll put it on forwards. The buy hat is engaged. Take Washington here, either money line or minus 1.5. And, truthfully, I think so much, obviously, great detail coming from Mike here. When I was capping this game, the first thing that really brought me to the attention of this game being such a big-time spot is the fact that they're bringing Jaden Daniels back. Yeah. I mean, this is a team that's 3-9. They're not going to the playoffs. They could have easily said, you got an injury, really rehab. We don't need to risk more injury like this. You're our franchise quarterback. They're bringing it back. They want to win this game. And I was watching the game on Sunday night against the Broncos. 27-26 loss in overtime. This team is highly competitive. And it's very easy to forget year 1 to year 2 in pro football, where teams were last year to where they are right now. The Commanders played in the NFC Championship game last year. They are a very good team. They're well coached. They have a good defense. Not only that, I'm listening to quotes on Sunday Night Football from Bobby Wagner. Wagner's talking about, listen, we're not mailing in this season. This is a chance for us to really build camaraderie, charisma, and connectedness going into the offseason for mini camp and training camp to come back next year. And that brings me back to the Daniels situation. He's very young. This is the beginning of his arc. This is not a team that is 3-9 and cratering down. They are really upticking. And you talk about Minnesota, it's a disaster. Minnesota looked good with Kirk Cousins. They lost in the playoffs a couple of years ago. They looked great with Sam Darnold. And they got rid of Sam Darnold. I said it last week. We'll say it every week because GMs are ego guys. They draft players. They're not about to say, we wasted money and we wasted a top 10 pick on a guy we're not even going to play. It's so much ego. They should have kept Sam Darnold. There's no question about it. Aaron Jones in the press conference yesterday has given all sorts of subtleties to the fact that JJ McCarthy just doesn't have the mental bandwidth to keep up with the speed of an NFL defense running at him. We've seen this all year. This guy can do absolutely nothing. I think this could actually be a blowout. And just final point on this, the only time this year the Vikings were a small dog at home to an NFC East opponent, the Eagles laid 2.5 points, did cover the spread at this stadium 28-22. And just zooming into that, the Eagles only laid 2.5 points in this stadium. The 3-9 Commanders are laying almost the same line as the Eagles. Take note of that relative strength. The Commanders have lost 7 straight games. They've lost 2 straight games in overtime. This is an absolute banger, 2-unit spot. Take Washington on the money line. I keep saying let's cash. Let's dominate. That's the 1 o'clock slate, and we got a small break.
Appreciate everybody. Make sure you smash that thumbs up button. If you're checking us out on Twitter, Sports Money Network over on YouTube is a great way to find all kinds of daily content. Shows going live several times a day to give you guys best bets and breakdowns. But the biggest thing we ask you to do is smack that thumbs up button, show the support and appreciation for my guy Shark and I doing this thing for you guys every week, trying to get you guys to the winners.
4 o'clock slate. We have 3 divisional games, a cluster of information this week, week 14. First one, we're going to Vegas. Broncos at Raiders, part 2. You got to remember, going back Thursday Night Football, November 6th, week 10, we all thought we were going to see a pretty cool game, pretty interesting game, nice little spot to bet some points, maybe take the Broncos to blow out the Raiders in some way. The Raiders are terrible. No, it was one of the worst games we've seen all year. 10-7. Turnovers, penalty yards, downs, 161 penalty yards in the game. Like, some of these games, I swear, it's like, does the NFL even care about the product? Like, they can't find some way to make the game slightly more entertaining. I mean, this is a tough game. I think you might see another terrible game. What do you think?
I can't believe that the NFL would let it, like the NHL takes a team to Vegas and they're a contender year in and year out, but the NFL hasn't found a way to rig those ping pong balls to give the Raiders a better looking team than they've got right now. Maybe it's because it's a warm destination and teams that travel down there, they know they're going to get that tourism element to it. I don't know. Here's the thing. I think I do know what I'm going to do in this game. And the entire universe has seen the inability of scoring from this Las Vegas Raiders side of things. Everybody, you don't even have to look at the game. You just know this team can't score. They can't find a way to produce offense. 81% of the bets, 89% of the cash. And yet we're starting to see this number move on the Raiders side of things here. That's 7.5. That hook kind of looms large. 40.5 on the total. Not really moving. 65% of the bets, 66% of the cash. So that's an element to kind of consider out there. I know the Raiders, the only time they've shown a flash of life is when I bet against them with the Jacksonville Jaguars in that game that went to overtime. But a brutal team in its own. I mean, look, they can only put up 10 points against the Cleveland Browns of all teams. 14 against the Chargers. This is a divisional game. How about some stats for you guys? I'll give you some numbers. I'll give you some analytics. Bo Nix. Everyone loves Bo Nix, but the critics are starting to get out on this guy. Like, dude, you really haven't played anybody, and you've got a great home field advantage, but look, believe it or not, here's some negative metrics around Bo Nix. He's struggling to control the ball. 20th in depth of target across the league. And not great. That's just kind of little chuck and runs out there. You're handing the ball off. They've gotten some running back dings out there. And the Raiders, they're 9th in DVOA versus the pass the last few weeks and 2nd against the run. Why do those numbers stand out to me? Because Bo Nix, the unders are 10-4 in Bo Nix era. So they're scoring lower games. If you're going to try to run the ball against a team that somehow has found their way to get it done, look, this is the second time out there. It's a rematch. It's a revenge spot. They're off a loss. That means we're buying low. You couldn't buy any lower on the shittiest team in the league than the Las Vegas Raiders here, but they're 30-9 in those positions. Also, one of my favorites, we talked about this last week, the overvaluation of teams. When that team has won 80% or more of its games, ergo the Denver Broncos, they overvalue those teams because they're trying to get you to buy in on the other side. And if you do so, you're 7-3 in your last 10, 138-88 over the lifespan of this trend, if you will, with that 80% or higher rate. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to close. It's not pretty. It smells terrible, but the plus 7.5, Shark. I'm looking forward to you texting me saying, what were you thinking, dummy? I'm going to take the 7.5.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree. Obviously, a lot to unpack. The primary reason here that I think that this could be a tight game is the fact that Denver purely plays to the opponent quality in terms of their ATS efficiency. It's extremely transparent and polarized. If they're playing a big-time team, they play a big-time game. If they're playing a bum team, they play a bum game. I mean, we've seen them not cover almost lose to the Jets overseas. They looked absolutely useless against the Giants. They were down huge until the biggest comeback of the season, I believe. Obviously, Houston against Jacksonville being right there with it. And they didn't cover against Vegas before, as we mentioned, just useless. And last week against a backup quarterback in Washington, Mariota. You just didn't feel like at any point in the game, Denver was really locked into the 60 minutes. Just very blasé. But then you see them on the other side of it, beating Philly on the road, blowing out Dallas at home in a big 4 o'clock game or 3 o'clock Mountain Time, whatever it is, and beating Kansas City. So the point is, this is really the team you want to sell when the game doesn't matter that much. And now, not only does it not matter that much, they've already beaten this team once. They're in a road back-to-back sequence off a primetime game overtime. So it's in a short week situation effectively. And they have a look ahead to a really big home game next week and 2 consecutive home games, home Green Bay, week 15, and home Jacksonville, week 16. So road, overtime, and you go home. This is a terrible spot. Mike, I would lean towards it with you. However, I do think the under is the best look in the game. I think you're going to see a lack of points, something like the Jets game overseas, 13-11 or some trash like that. Top look in the game for me would be the under. I haven't gotten to the Raiders yet. I really dislike the Raiders. Mike definitely has a little bit more of an affinity for the disgusting dogs. I'm still developing this stuff. I'm sitting here drinking coffee. We got our guy Wine Time in the house taking shots on the air. It's a beautiful Saturday. And, of course, shout out to you guys watching this Sunday morning as well. Take the under in this game and take the Raiders per Mike. Next game on the card, more divisional football, slightly more important football here. This is a big game. Bears at Packers. Historical rivalry here. These teams have played 210 times in the history of this matchup. Green Bay has dominated 108, 76, and 6 ties. Wow, interesting. I guess when you play that many times, 6 ties isn't really that much, but who knows? Point being, you got 9-3 Chicago. They're hot. They're kind of like the NFC version of Denver, maybe too hot. You got Green Bay at home, looking to cover, looking to score points. Mike, what do you think?
This is the classic example of overreaction and just blind stupidity. And I'll explain that here because I saw somebody, the biggest bet that I think it was BetMGM took this week, Bears to win the Super Bowl as far as futures are concerned. Guy put down 50 G's. I was thinking to myself, what are you doing? I mean, look, 2 teams, the New England Patriots and the Chicago Bears that are in these positions. And you got quarterbacks with no playoff experience. What are they going to go out there and shock the world? We saw what Caleb Williams was doing when he was over with USC. I talked about that earlier this week. Now, look, here's the thing you have to recognize. You have big-time reverse line movement starting to take place right now. 82% of the bets, 72% of the cash are on the Bears. This line just moved from 6.5. We're starting to see 7s creep in the marketplace. So depending on the side you're going to want to play, if you're going to go dog, you better wait. If you're going to go favorite, you better act now. 44.5 is the total. That has not moved with 67% of the bets and 66% of the cash. 3 weeks ago, I said, we're coming up to a position where we're going to have to fade these Chicago Bears. And it comes down to the fact that they're playing divisional games. I mentioned that inexperience from a quarterback perspective. Well, guess who's got experience? The Green Bay Packers. As much as I think Jordan Love's a softie, shout out to my guy Razor Sharp Picks. That's the reality here is, look, they're coming off of Bears coming off a big game against the Eagles. They just beat the Super Bowl champs. They're on this run. But look who they've played. Cincinnati, no Joe Burrow. Giants, battered and tattered mess. Minnesota, battered and tattered mess. Pittsburgh, battered and tattered mess. I mean, that Philadelphia Eagles game was, for all intent and purpose, their Super Bowl. They're going on the road. And here's the thing. How many more games do they need to be able to go out there and get into the playoffs? Well, they got 2 against Green Bay, and they got this little sandwich spot with Cleveland in between. So I think they're in a position where they maybe take their eye off the ball, a little collective exhale from a job well done. I mean, it surprised me to see him go out there and take them points away from my boys. But at the same time, you got to look at strength of schedule. It's 29th in the league. And so the Bears and the Packers, they play in the same division, so they're playing the same schedule. The difference is the Packers have an excellent offense when it comes to performing against the spread and the DVOA metrics on the other side of things. And their defense is fantastic. Bears, 6 of their 8 games have been by 1 score or less. And heavy favorites off a team coming off that. This is the collective exhale factor. You're a big dog You're coming off that giant win. You're 64 and 108 in those spots. In other words, the heavy favorite comes out there and wins at 108 to a 64 clip. I think this is a great spot to take the Packers. I think these boys find a way to get the job done for us. -6.5. I took it already. I didn't want to get that 7 out there. I think it may very well come down to a touchdown spot. But I think this is a good opportunity for us to get paid. What say you, Shark?
Yeah, this game for me in terms of the ATS is going to be tough. My top look in this game is going to be the over at 44.5. And really, I think this is a great buy low on Green Bay at home. Green Bay is 5-1 versus the home under. We've been talking about this pretty much every single week, how they just can't score at Lambeau. I mean, we're talking like egregious too. 16-13 Carolina, 10-7 against Philly, 23-6 their most recent home game against Minnesota. But here's the point. They actually scored 23 points there. So I think the Jordan Love quotient here is upticking. I think the Bears are just what the doctor ordered. I think the Bears defense is open for business. You saw 2 matchups last year, 20-19, 24-22, 46. Most recent matchup in Green Bay, week 18 last year. This is a matchup that's coming up. We've seen Chicago have some really high totals on the road this year, notably at Detroit in the division, 52-21, Washington 25-24, Cincinnati 47-42. This is a nice buy low on Chicago as well, coming off an under at Philadelphia 24-15. Their defense played great. Road, back-to-back division game of a huge win, also very hot. That's why you're fading Chicago. It's going to be a defensive letdown. I think you're going to see more points here. Mike likes the Packers in this game. I like the over. Let's cash. Next game on the card, last divisional game here before we get to the nightcap. Rams-Cardinals in Arizona. Interesting spot here. Probably more than interesting. I think it's a very good spot. Rams coming off a loss, only their 3rd this year. Cardinals at home looking polarized to a certain degree. Like we're going to come back from the graphic here, taking a sip of soda, beer, whatever the hell it is. Cheers up, fears down. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Boy, how can you not look at the Rams in this case? I mean, the Cardinals have had a great season. They're playing with they're playing with the second lease on life, I guess, with this trade in quarterbacks. Kyler Murray just not getting it done. 76% of the bets, 89% of the cash on the Rams. 8.5s have moved to 9s, and now we're seeing 9.5s. How about that? Seeing a full steam point on a team that's already laying an 8.5 spot. 48.5s moved down to 47.5. 56% of the bets, 57% of the cash coming in on the over, and yet it's ticked downward. And the question I had with you, and I said, I wish I had just a couple more hours, because what are we going to officially see from Devonta Adams and Kyron Williams? Looks like they're going to go. For all intent and purpose, they should be a go. And look, they should have a pretty decent matchup against this Cardinals team. Everything points to the Rams here. And I know this is one of those spots you got to get it now, because by the time this thing gets to 10, you're too late. Non-cover versus cover in divisional games. That's the buy low, sell high position for the Rams. 94-40 are those teams. Literally, try to simplify it for you guys and just give you, as in its purest form, NFL road favorites versus a conference opponent on a losing streak are 11-2-1. They dominate. I think that, look, little embarrassment last week. Some of us called it. Some of us said the Rams weren't going to come out there and get that job done. Was it wrong team favored? I did not say that, but I thought 10.5 points against the Carolina Panthers was too much. But I do think that they were looking ahead. They're trying to get themselves tight and right to finish off the playoffs, or get ready to finish off the regular season. Matt Stafford is going to give this Cardinals secondary everything they can handle. This guy is out there dominating, on pace to be probably the NFL MVP, depending on how the season finishes out. I think they have the coaching advantage on top of that. For me, this is a Rams spot. I know they struggled, but I think it was because they had divisional opponents, and it's easy to overlook a team like the Carolina Panthers, who have young assets all around out there, and you're just kind of, enjoying the fact that that was a big trip, West Coast to East Coast. I think they figured it out. I think they right the ship. I think they get it done. For me, I'm going to go to the first half in this game. I'm going to take the Rams. I don't like that giant number. I'm seeing it start to move now. I want to give you guys something that's a little bit more realistic. You can still get 8.5 for the full game, great, but I like the -5.5. I'll take the first half, -5.5. That's a nice little -110 line. What do you think about that?
I agree. And last week I brought out the hat for the 4 o'clock slate. This is an absolute banger Sundays are for the sharps. We got the hat change here. The buy hat is engaged. Take the Rams at -8.5. And Mike, you're laying me up here. It's just a great spot. Rams are off a loss. I talked about this with some of the other teams in the NFC in terms of the urgency here. They can't let up here. They're first in the division. They have the same record as the Seahawks. And the back end of the NFC playoffs is one of the most difficult in years, as I mentioned, with Seattle, Green Bay, San Francisco. The Detroit Lions are currently outside of the playoffs. I mean, that is outrageous. This is a must-win. It's a dominant spot. The Rams are 2-0 ATS this year off a previous loss. This is where they bounce back. And Jacoby Brissett here, quarterback for the Cardinals, extreme polarization. He has performed great outside of the division, 3-0 straight up in ATS, 3-1 maybe. I could have that wrong. Key point, 0-2 in the division, 2 blowouts. At Seattle, 44-22 blowout. And versus San Francisco, only divisional home game, 41-22. This is where, again, you want to buy Jacoby against out-of-division opponents that don't take the game seriously. The Rams will do anything but not take the game seriously. Take the Rams and let's cash. Final game of the card. We're going late night here. Maybe not late night. We're going 8:20 p.m. Kansas City. Arrowhead. Big game. Rematch of the playoffs. Rematch of last year late season. Texans are a bye team. Are the Chiefs a bye team? Mike, I think that's the question. Can we keep buying low on the Chiefs? Will they find it, or is this just an off year? I've talked about this a few times as the Chiefs have developed into this dynasty. The only real comparable team to the current Chiefs in the last 25 years is the New England Patriots in the Brady years. You have to remember, Brady won 3 championships before 2005 and didn't win another one for 10 years before winning 3 more. And 1 more with the Bucs. Point is, the Chiefs could go on a huge gap. Patrick Mahomes will be a quarterback in this league, barring injury, when he's 39, 40 years old. I believe that 100%. This could just be a gap year. I think that there's a certain possibility they don't bounce back, and they might not win championships for 5 to 7 years. Mike, I think that the Texans are live in this game.
Yeah, this could potentially be that wrong team favorite spot there that I try to put the badge on it once a week at the very least here, and it's not just a artificial, component to it. 67% of the bets and 70% of the cash are coming in on the Texans right now. The total's not moving at 41.5. It's got 71% of the bets and 66% of the cash. Just as I say that, just a little bit of cash just came in here on the Kansas City Chiefs. But I expect that as we get closer to game time, everyone's going to think, are you kidding me? I'm getting the Chiefs at a discount right now. And here's where you're going to dig in again. There's the stat. There's a reason I brought this up at the start of the show. DVOA, again, that hybrid metric of all of the down distance situational spots that the defense plays out there. The last 5 weeks, zoom in, not the full season, zoom in. As much as we're saying that, the Chiefs have maybe been playing a little bit better, not their defense. Their defense ranks 27th in that DVOA stat out there. It's telling you guys, this team's got some components to it. And you said it right. I mean, look, is it a gap year? Do I expect Andy Reid is he done and over with? Is Patrick Mahomes? No, that's ridiculous. But guess what happens? After 4 or 5 years of going to the Super Bowl every single year, you've reduced your offseason by 4 to 6 weeks. We saw some guys talking earlier this week about when they get hit, the tight ends, they get hit. It's like driving in a car accident. And they said, it takes me 4 or 5 days to recover. Now add another month to your schedule and add that for 5 straight years. That's a half a year of car accidents that take 4 or 5 days to recover from. It's natural to expect a team that's gone deep consistently time and again to fall off a little bit. Doesn't mean that they're broken and busted up. I saw this with Andy Reid back when he was coaching the Eagles and I was living in Philadelphia. But the fact is, with that defensive metric the way it is, you want to fade Kansas City after they allow 27 or more points. If you do, you're 13-1. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I like the hook in there, plus 3.5. Wrong team favorite. I think this is a good opportunity. Now, the thing about this with the Texans side, Shark, with all fairness, yeah, they're not scoring a ton of points as of late, but CJ Stroud comes back, and you talked about that and how important that is with Jaden Daniels with the Washington Commanders. They've had some tough pass blocking in the last couple of weeks. I think that subsides a little bit with the fact that you've got some consistency back with CJ Stroud now in that second week back. So I like this Texans team. I like the 3.5 points. I think there's even a shot for these guys to win the game outright.
Yeah, I think plus 3.5 is a very live number for sure. Even if the Chiefs win, I'd see it 3 points at the most. And truthfully, I think, it really is what you said. I said, this is just not the Chiefs year. It's just a fact. And It is what it is. But I think if you look at the Texans, as we mentioned, the AFC South is an absolute gauntlet. This is a must-win for the Texans. They have to win. And they're also 4-0 straight up last 4. They have momentum. D'Amico Ryan's a great coach. CJ Stroud is obviously wiser beyond his years, given his childhood and how his upbringing was a little disrupted and whatnot. But I also think that the double revenge game here has a lot of merit in terms of the motivation in the game for Houston. Houston just wants this game more, in my opinion. 2 losses last year, 1 in the playoffs, most recently, divisional round, 23-14. Keep one on the line in terms of what the books think of this. Kansas City was favored by almost a touchdown in that game. I believe even more, 7.5. This moved down to 3.5. It's the same calendar year. Books are heavily moving this towards the Texans. I think you're going to see a lot of public narratives. I can almost guarantee you when you watch Sunday Night Football, NBC does the commentator panel in terms of their games. Yeah. I bet every single commentator picks the Chiefs in this game because they just can't get over the Chiefs going under 500, missing the playoff. They can't see it. That's why you watch this show. That's why we prognosticate for a living. We also love to bring you the commentary, I think, with the same level of entertainment that you see on TV as well. We love to do it. Mike, that's a hell of a show. It's an extra 6 minutes. We had 1 extra game. Crazy. 1 extra game, 1 extra segment. It is what it is. But we appreciate you guys in the chat hanging out with us on this Saturday. That is the full breakdown. Mike, let's talk best bets. Sundays are for the Sharps. NFL Week 14. The Shark and Mikey money. Mike, best bets.
Yeah, I got a 3-pack for you guys here this fine Saturday leading into Sunday. I'm going to go with that Colts. I think they do smack down on this Jacksonville Jaguars team. That money line at -124 is an official play. The Packers at -6.5 against that Bear spot in that terrible look-ahead situation. And I'm going to go to the Texans. I'm going to take these Texans +3.5. I'm thinking if you're not going to take it, I'll circle back and swoop in on them Cincinnati Bengals as well. But I think that's a really great spot too. So we got 4 opportunities there. The Colts, the Packers, the Texans, and the Cincinnati Bengals. Going to be a lot of fun to watch it on Sunday, Shark. I hope you have some safe travels, my guy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And for those of you guys watching now, we appreciate you guys in the chat hanging out with us on a Saturday during college football, December the 6th. Of course, this show will be airing throughout the afternoon, evening, and into Sunday morning. We appreciate you guys watching on Sunday morning, our usual time. We will be back next week at that time, 11 a.m. on a Sunday. We really do love the live Sunday shows. That's where the energy is, just leading into the game, and it's big time. But I have 4 top plays for you guys. Cincinnati +6, New Orleans +8.5, Cleveland -3.5, and Washington. That's my top play. Money line, 2 units. Mike, we want to give them 8 plays. You gave 3, correct?
Yeah, I doubled up with you on Cincinnati, I guess. So let me.
Why don't we both love the Seahawks? Let's give them a collab on the Seahawks.
All right, that sounds good.
All right, so those are our 8. Seahawks -6.5. Great stuff there. We appreciate you guys. Mike, give them a few words, and I'll close it out.
Appreciate all you guys taking the time on Saturday and leading into Sunday. We'll get this thing reposted for you guys, try to break up some segments. So thank you guys. This is going to be a good opportunity at week 14 to build these bankrolls, keep things moving. Appreciate your flexibility as we've had some travel schedules the last couple of weeks, but the most important thing is to build the community, share with you guys the information that we have, and try to help you guys make more informed betting decisions. That's what it's all about. Smash the thumbs up. Leave a comment post-show if you guys like the content, if you want to see a certain segment, if you guys have a play that you want to see involved on there that you're making as your best bet. Those are all appreciated in the comments. We'll shout you guys out the following week. Winners, and of course, we'll see you guys again back here next Sunday. So make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the Sports Money Network here on YouTube. If you're checking us out on X, migrate on over Sports Money Network over on YouTube. Find all this daily content.
Absolutely. As I said, slightly longer show. Also, we're sitting here, got a cup of coffee. We can talk for hours, but we try to bring you guys a fast hour at most, a little longer today, but all data-packed information and high energy. We appreciate you guys in the chat. Have a great Saturday. Something I said yesterday on one of my NBA shows. Make sure you have a huge bankroll set aside for sports betting. You don't want to conflate your sports betting wagers with your lifestyle finances. It brings stress. It brings irregular decisions, and it doesn't lead you to success. Our show's about success. Have a great Saturday. Sundays are for the Sharps. We're going to cash. We're going to dominate. Always for Mike and myself, stay fast, stay strong.